Welcome, Hans Kwak. You are a research scientist, senior research scientist at TNO, and you are an expert in setting up living labs. So for us it's important that, well, we want to know, what is a living lab?
That's a good question. A lot of projects nowadays are called living labs, and there's no one definition of what a living lab should be, but there are a couple of elements that are usually in a living lab. So one of the things is that it's action-driven. It's actually experiments in a real-life context. Another thing is that it's important that all relevant stakeholders are involved, so that's public, private, knowledge, but also the users or the citizens in a city. Other elements are that it's usually focusing on the long term, and not so much a project that's focusing on the short term, but there's a long-term objective, and a lot of experiments should together achieve the long-term goal. So these are elements which are important. Another element, what is important, is that it's like continuously monitored, so that if you try something or a company tries something and it's successful, you can scale it up, or if it's not successful, you can adjust it and continue in order to achieve your long-term objective.
Okay, thank you. And if you are working in the practice, how do you set up a living lab? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's usually it starts with a group of interested stakeholders. Yeah. So, for example, partnership can be a good first step to start a living lab, but it's more. It's action-driven, so it's not only coming together that you discuss topics, but you also have to do something. So usually it's good to start with a shared objective. Yeah. From that objective, go backward and see if it's possible to have a roadmap and what kind of actions the different participants can actually take in order to achieve the long-term objective. So companies do some things, authorities do things, knowledge institutes do things, and together they also work together, and that's the first step. And a start can be, for example, a sustainable urban logistics plan of a government, but that's usually driven by local authorities only. But here it's then, this plan can be a start, and then you see what companies can do and what they want to do in order to achieve the goal. So it's really a shared values, shared objectives, so that you share the problem and you together want to solve it.
Yeah, that's an important thing. The problem is probably the reason to set up a living lab.
Yes, so actually solving the problem, yeah, especially for the long term, because a lot of things already happen, but usually these are really focusing on short-term problems, yeah, to focus to solve these issues, and then after that it either stops or they want to set up a new project because there's project funding or so. But this is really on continuing on the long term.
Okay. And what are the main benefits, according to you, using a living lab?
Now, the main benefits would be that you really work on a long-term objective. So you really want to achieve, for example, zero-emission city logistics. That's not something you can do in one project. You really need a lot of different projects, different resources, different funding, different actors that cooperate. And what you do in a living lab is that you have this objective, and the different things you plan should all add to achieving that value. Another thing is that you really can cooperate between knowledge institutes like universities or research companies, and they can bring in or monitor continuously on what's happening in a city. And that's also usually not the case. Normally only a project is monitored, and then after the project you say yes, it's successful or it's not successful, and then it basically ends. And here you can continue and improving it until in the far future you reach your objectives.
So you really can experiment, and the actors are really experiencing the benefits from the system.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Are there any pitfalls actually?
There are, because it's a new way of working. A lot of people don't really, it's difficult for them to work like that. It's easier to plan a project, and then you have like, okay, we work on it for 6 months, and then we want to achieve this, and then everyone is enthusiastic and works on it. And here you have your objective maybe 10 years later, and you know that it's contributing, but it isn't finished after that. And also, like, you know the objective, but you don't know exactly how to get there. So it's not fully planned. So you have to look for new projects, new funding, new participants to join, which is also for people that are comfortable in planning something for a couple of months, doing that, executing that, and then go to a new project or a new initiative. This kind of working is really difficult because you don't really know everything in advance, so that's difficult. Yeah. Okay. And you need long-term commitment. And what you see is that, of course, people move jobs or change within a company, and then you need to align new people in these objectives that you, in the beginning, you defined it all together, and now new people get in. They didn't invent it, so it takes a lot of time to also get them involved.
Convinced again. Yeah. Okay, I can imagine. Yeah. And well, you did already a long list of living labs. Can you tell a little bit about your best experience in one of your living labs?
And one of the things what we did is with the City of Rotterdam, we tried to set it up, and we had this long-term goal of zero-emission city logistics. And what happened is that there, for example, a company started the first zero-emission city logistics company that only run battery electric vehicles. There, you see that it's a couple of actions were taken together with private companies and the city authorities. For example, Best Driver competition that was organized together. And one of the nice things to see is that it's this objective, which is usually more a city objective, really becomes something of the entire group. So everyone is committed in making this objective. So that's really, it feels very nice, so it's a nice experience.
It's fun, pleasure to work in these kind of conditions. Okay. Okay, Hans, thank you very much for this interview and this explanation about living labs, and see you next time.
Okay, thank you.